Hello, and welcome to Chapter 7, Gathering Materials. This is on page 119 in your book if you want to follow along. I'm also following along with the PowerPoint as well today. My apologies if I sound like a man. I'm definitely not better from Wednesday. I believe I'm worse. So if you can just bear with me and my pajamas. Yeah, it's noon-ish on Sunday. I'm still in my PJs. So, when gathering information, you can get information from your own personal knowledge or experience. You can also use the library resources, which range from the librarians to the catalog. Maybe some of you remember using paper catalogs where there were these little drawers with like 3x5 note cards that had the little hole punch at the bottom so that they would go on this like rod and you can slide them back and forth. But now everything's pretty much done digitally, so we don't have to worry about those paper catalogs anymore, and we can just search on a computer database. There's usually a computer set up in your local library where you can find this information, or type in the information you're looking for, and it will give you a list of books that are supposedly relevant to your topic. You can also use reference works. These are works that synthesize a large amount of related information for easy access for researchers. You can also use newspaper and periodical databases, which are research aids that catalog articles from a large number of magazines, journals, and newspapers. Weird. I know you guys know a lot of this information, but I still have to cover it because you guys have quizzes that are due March 3rd, and some of the definitions are slightly different than where you would find them elsewhere, so I'm just trying to help you out. I know it's a little mundane, but bear with me. There are also academic databases, and these are databases that catalog articles from scholarly journals. Here we have the definition of catalog, which is a list of books, periodicals, or other resources owned by the library. I already defined reference work. Different types of reference works that you will have common access to are encyclopedias, yearbooks, quotation books, and even biographical aids. You guys know what encyclopedias are, the Britannica series. They used to come door to door and sell you the 1997 edition. But when the 1998 edition came out, your information was already outdated. Now, what Britannica does is they sell you like a subscription for access to the information online, and then as it's updated, you already have the updated information, and you don't have to pay for a new set of encyclopedias. And encyclopedias take up a lot of space. Jeez. Yearbooks, not your high school yearbook, but think of an almanac or the facts on file. Those are two examples to give you. Quotation books, obviously, books full of quotations that cite their sources. And biographical aids, basically anything that's considered biography or an autobiography. I talked about databases, the newspaper and periodicals, and the academic databases. Newspaper and periodical databases, think of something like the New York Times online or the Wall Street Journal, something where you can type in, as long as you have a subscription, you can type in, boop, 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 this is the article I'm looking for, I know it came out in 2010, and it'll narrow down your search. Exciting, I know. Also, academic databases include InfoTrack OneFile, JSTOR, and Google Scholar. There's also LexisNexis. That's an example that you might have access to. Abstracts, however, are summaries of magazines, journal articles, abstracts. These are summaries of magazines or journal articles. However, don't cite the abstract alone because it's only a summary and it's somebody else's interpretation of the article. However, you can go to the works that they cite, kind of like Wikipedia, and then look at those and figure out whether or not the information they're citing is credible and contains enough information that's relevant and recent for you to cite. Internet searching. You can use search engines. So Google, Bing. For those of you who don't know how to do the search bar hacks, if you're looking for college cheerleading sports injuries, you would put in quotes college cheerleading, alright, and then a plus sign, and then in quotes sport injury. And that would pull up anything that says college cheerleading along with a sport injury. And as long as those two words are side by side, the college cheerleading and the sport injury, it'll only pull up those articles. Specialized resources are things like virtual libraries, government resources, and Wikipedia. We'll get to Wiki. Virtual libraries are search engines that combine internet technology with traditional library methods of cataloging and assessing data. Government resources are websites like USA.gov, Census.gov, which is the statistical abstract, and also World Factbook, CIA.gov. And for Wikipedia, you guys already know what Wikipedia is, but this is considered the biggest encyclopedia ever. It is reliable compared to other traditional sources. It's a good place to start your research, but don't finish your research there. Look at the bottom of the page where they cite all of their sources, and go to those links and those sources that they provide you and make sure that the information that they're giving you hasn't been taken out of context, because, as we all know, Wikipedia is is user updated. So anybody can update it as long as enough people verify that the information is correct. When evaluating documents, specifically internet documents, you want to look at who the author is. Is the author credible? Is this person an expert in the field? Do some background research on the author of the page. Is it a credible doctor who does research in oncology and is giving you information about different types of cancers and whatnot, and what he thinks causes them and are triggers? Or is it Joe Schmo who wears a tinfoil cap out of his garage, just making this website? Also, look at who sponsors the website. A sponsoring organization is a group that, in the absence of a clearly defined author, is responsible for the content of a document on the internet. It's not feeling so hot. So, reputable organizations who are going to be sponsors for web pages might be the American Cancer Society, Center for Disease Control. Maybe it's Riley's Children's Hospital or St. Jude's. Look up these sponsoring organizations and click on their About link on the organization's homepage. And this is going to take you to information about the identity of the site's founders, their purpose, their philosophy, However, if the homepage does not contain an about link, this might be a sign that the sponsoring organization is less than forthright and does not meet the necessary standards of objectivity and expertise. If they're not going to be forthcoming about the information about themselves, what makes you think that their information is going to be honest about what they post on the internet? Because you can't post anything on the internet that's not true, right? I'm waiting for the laughs, but nobody's here. It's okay. Recency. When was the last time this page was updated? Was it updated 6 years ago? Was it last updated in 1997 and it's covered in those little bouncing smiley GIFs or the little hamster dances and is done in just like a blue text that's like Comic Sans size 26 font? The best way to determine recency of an internet page is to look for a copyright date, a publication date, or a date of last revision. In my experience, it's usually at the bottom of the page and it's usually centered, or it's going to be in the upper right-hand corner of your website. Those are the two places you're really going to look to find how recent the document is. If you're going to be conducting an interview to determine or to gain additional research, my train of thought derailed. Research interview is defined for you, by the way, in case you didn't already know. But a research interview is an interview conducted to gather information for a speech. Just take it in, absorb the definition. Common sense, right? I'm glad you guys are watching my video. When you're preparing questions for an interview, some things you should avoid are questions that are answerable without an interview. I know this is really cheesy, but for anybody who's read 50 Shades, when Anna goes in to interview Christian Grey, she's going in place of her friend, who sends her with a list of questions. However, she does not give, the friend does not give Anna any background information on Christian Grey, so some of her opening questions are very common knowledge all over the internet, type of things that she could have found out on her own before the interview. You don't want to ask the questions that have already been asked 20,000 times that you can find out on your own. Also, be sure to avoid leading questions. These are questions that are going to force the interviewee to give you an answer that's in favor of what you're looking for. Additionally, avoid hostile loaded questions because you don't want to offend the person you're interviewing. And as students, you want to give your school, or as an employee, your employer, a good name, and you want the interviewee to do business with that school or organization again. Before the interview, some things you're going to want to do for the interviewee are define the purpose of your interview and decide who you're going to interview. When arranging the interview, be sure to ask the person's permission and set up a time and place that works best for them, not for you. You're taking time out of their busy days to allow you to interview them. Decide whether or not you want to record the interview. If you do want to record the interview, you have to have the interviewee's permission. Also, if you're going to do that, make sure you know how to work your recording equipment. Again, back to my 50 Shades example, Anna didn't know how to work the recorder that her friend had sent with her, and she was fumbling around with the recorder, and Mr. Gray was getting a little annoyed, perturbed. When preparing your questions, I already gave you the list of things to avoid. But tips for research, start early with your research. No, I'm still talking about interview stuff. They're not on the tips for research slide yet. Things to do during the interview, be sure to dress appropriately and be on time. Business casual is usually going to be sufficient, so slacks and a button down with a tie, or ladies like dress slacks, heels, and a blouse. You don't need to go all formal. Getting some text messages, no big deal. You don't need to go all formal business attire with a suit unless you think the occasion calls for it. Use your best judgment. Also, the book says be on time, be early. There's nothing worse than starting the interview like 10 minutes later because you were only on time. If you get there early, it allows you time to set up, get out your questions, make sure your recorder's working, your batteries are sufficient, and all that fun stuff. Be sure to repeat the purpose of the interview to the interviewee, and you'll just kind of refresh in their mind the goal of the interview that you're conducting. Set up the recorder if you're using one. Keep the interview on track. Try not to go off on too many tangents just because you only have so much time with the interviewee and you don't want to interrupt the rest of their day. Be sure to listen carefully to the responses because this may trigger a follow-up question to help better clarify the answer that they gave you, because you don't want to take anything that they say out of context. Also, don't overstay your welcome. Again, stay within that allotted time frame that they've allowed you. After the interview, review your notes as soon as possible so that they're fresh in your head and you can jot down any additional things that you forgot to write down. And be sure to transcribe your notes as well so that they're more legible. And another thing that's not mentioned here is a thank you card. A handwritten thank you card is going to go a lot further than a thank you email, but however, a thank you email will suffice as well. It just lets the interviewee know that you are grateful that they allowed you to interview them and that you're thankful for their time and that you appreciated getting to know them a little better and that you appreciate them helping you with your project. Additionally, I have kind of an example of this. In undergrad, my junior year, I interviewed the mayor of my hometown, Larry Thompson, and it was for a local government class. And he allowed me to meet with him on a Sunday because it was really hard to get up from Bloomington, and he preferred doing the interview in person rather than email. And after the interview, I sent him a thank you card along with a final draft that I turned in for my class so that he could see my final product. So he really appreciated it. He and my dad have been friends for a long time, so it was definitely a huge favor that he did for me. I feel my feel and hear my voice cracking. Tips for doing research. Now we're moving on to that slide. Start early because your research may not take you in exactly the path that you had expected, and you might have to rework your thesis topic or statement. Think about the types of materials you're going to use and also make a preliminary bibliography. So this is like a list of books that you think you're going to use or websites. And when you're taking notes, be sure to take notes efficiently. To do this, take plenty of notes. A lot of us now don't take handwritten notes, which is totally okay. We tend to, for me, I have like two methods kind of, and sometimes I work them together, but my primary method is to copy and paste the URL onto the top of my notes page, and then underneath that notes page make a bunch of bullets of main points that I like from that source. And then I'll start a new page in the same document and cite another website. And then the other method that I have is to print off if it's like a lengthy PDF that I don't want to read on my laptop, I will print off a copy of it. Seems like a waste. I usually try to print off the section that I know is relevant to my topic, but if it's like 15 pages, I'll print it all off. Duplexed, of course. And then from there, I highlight the information that I want, and I jot notes down in the margin. And that's my way of taking notes. Be sure to record your notes in a consistent format so that you know where everything came from, so that you're not misciting anything. Is that even a word? Today's rough. Also, be sure to make separate entries for each note. This way you're not combining 2 quotes into one. Make sure that you have a separate bullet point for everything that you're taking from that source. Also, be sure to distinguish within your notes the difference between direct quotes and paraphrases and your own ideas that spurred from the information that you read. Because you have to be sure to always, you always have to cite your direct quotes and your paraphrases. And that is all I have for Chapter 7. I hope you're so excited for riveting Chapter 8. Sorry we couldn't have class last week. This is for my Monday, Wednesday evening class, but with the snow on Monday and me being sick Wednesday, which, still not feeling so hot, class just didn't work out. Thank you for your patience, by the way. Hope to have these up really soon for you guys so you can watch them. And then don't forget I have the bar exam this week too. Hope you guys are enjoying all this no class time.